everybody. Give yourself a pat on the back. You have made it to the weekend, and subsequently, you are now 1 work week away from the Christmas holiday. Round of applause for that. Goodness gracious. It's finally here. Welcome in, everybody. Happy to have you on a Friday night to the Gem City Sports Podcast. It is, as always, brought to you by Rebich Investments. They keep financial guidance simple. Make sure to visit their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can call their number during business hours at 814-734-3433. It is Prediction Friday night. We got the whole gang here. Isaac Petcash, Nick Artman, Coach Wayne Bradford, Jonathan Williams, everyone virtual tonight except me. I'm the lone wolf in the Millennium Sound Studio because I'm crazy like that.
It's way too cold to be out there.
I was going to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I have to find the heat here. I found the restroom. I found where the snacks are. Thanks, Mark Geiser. I found where the drinks are. I have not found the heat yet. So if Mark's watching this and can let me know, the heat's got to be somewhere. But honestly, I don't pay for the building, so I probably really should.
I was going to say, we didn't pay to unlock that feature. Yeah, we got to pay to unlock that feature.
It's a pay-to-play sort of thing. Hey, lots going on tonight. We are predicting Week 15, 2 huge games in the NFL coming up on Sunday with the Steelers and the Bills. And while we start tonight's show, it's going to be Nick Artman, who is off to Disney World. Like
yeah,
what?
Buddy. That's right. I'm taking my talents to Florida.
But probably smart. We were joking on a recent podcast episode because Nick was talking about, like, you haven't gotten the presents or anything for your kids at all. The present is when you uncover their eyes at the Magic Kingdom on Main Street. That's the present.
No, man, my wife is a saint. She, we had this trip planned for a while, and we've been looking forward to it for a long time. We love going to Disney, the rides, the magic, like just seeing your kids' face when they're in Disney World and seeing those characters. Like, our 4-year-old will look at Goofy and be like, "That's Goofy. Like that's the same one I watch on my TV." Like I'll pay as much money as I can to see that magic. And you're right. And she's gone out. So knowing we're leaving and heading out, she had all the Christmas shopping done and wrapped before Black Friday. Black Friday was like, let's go see what's on sale because we're already done. Like I didn't do any of it. So I'm going to be just as excited on Christmas morning going, what'd we get? What'd you get? Holding the trash bag. Give me all the trash, right? That's Dad's duty. Give me all the wrapping paper. So
What's everyone
we're looking
hoping
forward
for
to
Christmas, by the way?
What's that?
What's everyone hoping for Christmas? Any gifts in particular?
Well, I'm going to Disney, so cash is expected.
Not the big old check.
Increase the limit on the credit card.
Exactly.
Coach, you got one?
What's that?
Coach, I think you got one at all?
Got one what?
Yeah, Christmas present. Anything you're looking for Christmas here?
Just to have all the kids home and, my mom and mother-in-law here and that's it. I'm a pretty simple man. Watch the Ravens Steelers Christmas Eve, or is that Christmas Day is the Chiefs and
Chiefs Steelers.
And
Chiefs
Ravens. Chiefs Steelers, I'm sorry. Chiefs Ravens, one of those games. Pretty simple man.
Jay Will, you going back home for the holidays?
Still working that out. Still trying to figure out if I'm gonna make it back in time. But as far as a Christmas present for me, I'm gonna go a tad bit cynical. I want all of the teams that don't deserve to be in the college football playoff to lose in round one and lose very badly.
So now you're a South Carolina fan, so that's everybody. Everybody deserves to lose, right?
I won't go as far as to say everybody. Just, your Clemsons, your SMUs, your Indianas,
So Jonathan's got 2
haven't
problems.
beaten anyone all season.
So Jonathan's got 99 problems, and here are 2 of them. Number 1 is South Carolina Gamecocks aren't in the playoffs. Number 2, the school that shares the same area, not the same state, but the same area as Jonathan. It is also named Carolina. Just got arguably the greatest coach of all time to go coach for it. But we talked about that on the Thursday episode. Jonathan doesn't seem to care. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Wayne, your thoughts. Let's get Coach, your thoughts. Bill Belichick, is it going to work?
Yeah, why wouldn't it? I mean, the NFL free agency, the guy's always been the person who is drafted uniquely. No one said, "Hey, these are great draft picks." So his whole entire career is about been developing, underrated players or players off the radar. So the transfer portal is free agency on steroids. I think it'll be great. I love the fact that I saw the little thing from Lombardi about where they had a trip and many moons ago, and how beautiful North Carolina is, and not being able to win. When I was at Salisbury University, we traveled to Chapel Hill in Mac Brown's first tenure, right after they won, or we were down there when they had Montrose and won the Final Four. It was crazy. We were at Phil Ford's bar, and Julius Peppers was on the team, and the corner, oh gosh, can't think of his name, but I don't know how you can't win at Carolina. If you've ever been to Chapel Hill, it is gorgeous. And I always talked about top 4 or 5 places I'd like to work: Chapel Hill, the Naval Academy, William and Mary, University of Virginia. If someone said, what would be your wish list of 4 places you'd raise a family, live, and coach? I think it's the perfect storm.
So interesting, and we'll see how that works out. But look, college football is changing, and it's allowing multiple teams now that maybe weren't considered for the playoffs or even considered to be an elite team now, that opportunity to be an elite team. And it's a perfect transition to start our show because, next week, we're going to be revealing our college football playoff bracket predictions for the first round, and maybe even a little bit further, we'll see. But tonight, with Nick heading yonder to Florida, he is going to start us off with his first round college football playoff bracket predictions. So, Nick, I know you've put a lot of work into this, and you've got maybe we'll see if you've got some upsets here, but let's go ahead and start at the top and work our way down. We'll save Penn State for last. The game that I think everyone thinks is probably going to be the most lopsided is Texas and Clemson. Let's start with Texas Clemson. Who you've got in that one?
Yeah, as much as I would love to go Clemson just to kind of like stick the fork in Jonathan, I can't. I just can't even make up a reason for them to win this game. Texas is the better all-around team. I think the only advantage Clemson has in this game is Dabo. I think Dabo Swinney is just an incredible coach. He understands situational football. He's a smart football coach. To have the success that he has without really wanting to participate in the NIL, and I think he's one of the only coaches who has yet to sign a transfer portal athlete. So that just, I think, just shows to the kind of coach he can be. He will coach up his players. But I just think when you have two, almost, or I mean, as close as you can get, I think, pro-ready quarterbacks in Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, I think whoever ends up playing, I think you're going to see both of them in this game. Not only that, the Longhorns are only allowing 12.1 points per game and 4 yards per play. That's just not enough for Clemson to hang on. So, yeah, no upset here. I'm going Texas over Clemson. Didn't even talk about the home field advantage, right? We're talking this is the first time you have home field advantage in the college football playoff. That stadium in Austin is going to be insanely loud.
And it was interesting hearing some of the experts talk about, okay, how much is Arch going to play? Nick, I think you make a good point, is we'll see how much he's in the game when they face off in about a week and a half's time. All right, now we move to Tennessee, Ohio State, which is, I think, the biggest game of the entire weekend. It's the 8-9. Who do you like in that one?
So this is where I start to maybe play at my first upset. Now, I may be biased. I have taught for the University of Tennessee before, but I just see the Orange coming out and sneaking one out over Ohio State. And I think for me, if you want to look at it simply, it's that Tennessee's defense greater than sign Ohio State offense. Ohio State has a good offense. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I just think that Tennessee defense is stopping some big-time offenses. They've had some big-time wins this year. And then if you can slow down, maybe you can't stop them, but can you slow down that Ohio State offense? Well, then when you're on offense, Ayamaliava just needs to hand the ball to Dillip Sampson. And Sampson, who's a unanimous first-team SEC All-Team and the AP SEC Offensive Player of the Year, I think is going to have a huge run game in this one. So I got Tennessee over Ohio State.
Man, I covered the Penn State-Ohio State game back a few weeks ago, whenever that was. I can't even remember anymore. And I remember Penn State fans booing James Franklin off the field after they lost. I could only imagine what the sound was in Columbus when Ohio State lost as a 21-point favorite to Michigan. They go 3-and-out on their first drive. It's going to be a rough rough and tumble game for Ryan Day and those Buckeyes. How about the Battle of Indiana, the Hoosiers and the Irish in what I think it was an unexpected playoff matchup, Nick, but make your pick between the 7-10.
So, Jonathan, I could save you from the first. I can't save you from the second one. I got Indiana over Notre Dame as my other upset this week. And part of it is I had the pleasure of covering Kurt Cignetti when he was at IUP, and the guy is just a winner. I mean, everywhere he goes, he is just hyping up his team. He preps like no other. That team is going to play their hearts out for him, especially coming in knowing that they feel like, maybe they were pushed to the side a little bit this year. I think they would love to go into Notre Dame and upset Notre Dame. Indiana leads the nation in rush defense, so I think that's going to be enough to slow down that powerful rushing game of the Fighting Irish. And I think Indiana's offensive line, you saw that game against Ohio State. They struggled a little bit. They've been pretty strong all year. I think they need to really, if they do want to upset Notre Dame in this one, they got to step up and protect Curtis Rourke, because Rourke can have a heck of a game if he has the time to play smart.
Man, and it's so interesting, too, because I think, Coach Jonathan, you guys can chime in on this as you want. You mentioned Kurt Cignetti with IUP and just the roots and whatnot. We talked about Bill Belichick. It just seems like anybody who's got a good background in coaching now can take these programs and transform them in a year or two. And I think it's pretty cool to see at the college game that, some guys who cut their teeth in this area are now performing really well at the highest level of college football.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch, especially like coaches from the PSAC in general and coaches from this specific area move on to higher levels of college football and be successful. I was fortunate enough to play for one of those guys in a Brian Nardo, who was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State for the last 2 years, and a down year this year that they had. But his first year there, top 25 finish, led them to a conference championship. Like, it's really fun to watch guys cut their teeth at this level and small time, quote unquote, Division II football in the PSAC, and then take it to the big time and really prove that they are worth their salt amongst some of the greatest coaches and some of the best coaches in all of college football.
Yep, I agree.
So here we go now, and the big game that we are focusing on, SMU Penn State. Now, on paper, Nick, this seems like an easy win for the Nittany Lions. They have a Drew Aller who just had 4 touchdowns in the game against Oregon. You've got newly minted Mackey Award winner and Tyler Warren. I'm concerned. I'm not going to reveal my pick until we get to next week. Who do you got in Happy Valley? Is it happy or is it somber sadness after Saturday afternoon?
I'll tell you what, if you have any doubt about Penn State over SMU in this game, go back to your favorite podcast app and pull up Flagship City Sports Talk from Monday and listen to T. Frank Carr from Blue White Illustrated talk about Penn State's offense, and it just gets you excited. It makes you feel like, maybe spoiler alert for my bracket later, it makes you feel like they can go all the way. I think Beaver Stadium is going to, I talked about Texas being on fire. Beaver Stadium may collapse under its own weight of excitement between the roar of the fans and the jumping up and down. I mean, as soon as Zombie Nation plays, forget about it. That place is going to be loud. Drew Aller, I think, is going to do enough to stay ahead of SMU. I think that you're going to see a big Nick Singleton game. He's finally looking healthy, rushing, looking really strong as a runner. I think he's going to have a lot of yards. And Tyler Warren, like you mentioned, Mackey Award winner, he's at least going to have a touchdown. But I think Nick Singleton's going to be the offensive key to this game. On the defensive side of things, Abdul Carter needs to just live in that backfield to break up, SMU's Kevin Jennings, who's a great dual threat quarterback. Carter needs to disrupt that offensive line so that before Jennings can make a play, he's looking to see where Carter is and just give Carter that time to get in and break up that SMU offense. So I'm going Penn State.
Nick, going with the Nittany Lions.
The one thing, to your point, Nick, about Jennings, I've watched SMU play more than one football game this year for reasons that we'll stay away from. But like the one thing that I've seen with him, though, is you can turn him over. You can make him make some bad decisions. You can make him turn the football over, throw a couple of interceptions. So that's really the key for me for Penn State defensively going into this game is make him throw you the football. If you make him give you 1 or 2 interceptions, you're sitting pretty in this game because he's the type of guy that's going to take risks downfield, and he's going to make the occasional ill-advised throw. You just have to make them pay for it.
Yep, and I think Carter's that guy to get into his head.
So we'll see that game happening just over a week from now, and we'll reveal our picks coming up next week. But before we get into NFL talk, let's go ahead and remind you our show, sponsored by Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Make sure to visit their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can call their number 814-734-3433. Tell you what, guys, week 15, normally everyone's getting ready for playoffs. You don't have these gigantic games. We got 2 of them to talk about this weekend. And let's start in Detroit with 2 teams that are looking to win their first ever Super Bowls. And what I coined 2 weeks ago as a Super Bowl matchup, Bills and Lions, 4:25 on Sunday. And I want to start with Coach on this because you made a good point, Wayne. I think it was last week when they were going up against the Rams. We were talking about the dominating performance over the 49ers, and we said, okay, there's no weakness to this team. I think I even said there's no weakness to this team. And you went out and said, yeah, but their run defense hasn't been really great. If McCaffrey wasn't hurt, San Francisco would have rushed a bunch and the game would have been different. Well, we see Kyron Williams go off, and to your point, it looked like the front 7 was down on their, not resting on their laurels, if you will. How concerning for you, Wayne, going into a game like this, and really the rest of the season, is this Bills run defense and specifically the front 7 for you?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about at this particular time of the year the ability to run the football in the playoffs and stop the run, and the ability for the run to set up the play action. So, Coach Babich has done a tremendous job, but he is a believer in too high, right? So, if you're going to be a believer in too high, and Jonathan understands this, 6 in the box, everybody's got to win, right? So, even though Buffalo is very talented as a defensive line, is their strength 2-gapping, getting off blocks, or is their strength being a pass rush, right? So, getting double teams on you, displacing guys, being a little bit smaller at linebacker, or being in the nickel all the time, is concerning. You've got to be really good to defend with 5 or 6 in the box versus 11 personnel, 10 personnel. You've got to cut the front. And you may say, what do you mean by cut the front? If you want to stay in cover 2, all right, you just can't line up in an A gap, the B gap, the C gap. You've got to take the C gap defender and get him into the B gap and make the ball spill to the nickel. You got to take the 3 and the 6 and get him in the A and B and spill the ball to the overhang. And you're going to get into, Detroit and LA and 12 personnel teams now. So you're in too high. Now they've added a 7th guy in the box. You've got to make a decision to get the 8th guy down, and then here comes the play action pass. So schematically and just belief wise, you're that too high shell. You've got to be able to, at this particular time of the year, say, hey, we might have to do something a little bit outside of our base to be successful.
No, I
Jonathan,
love that.
yeah, go ahead, Nick.
No, I think you talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I think that's what both teams are going to need to do. I think it's going to be a really big, we talk about, maybe it's a bad cliche, we say it a lot on this show especially, but it's that heavyweight fight, right? And I think it's going to come down to that uncomfortability, but who's going to make that mistake, right? I think you're looking at, we talked about before, Sean McDermott's decision making, maybe not always the best, and you have Dan Campbell who's going to go for it on fourth down, one of the most aggressive. I think he's going to be more aggressive than usual because he wants to win this game. He wants to lock up home field advantage in the playoffs, and I think that's going to make him even more aggressive. So instead of being that game where whoever's got the ball last is going to win, I think it's going to who doesn't make the mistake, I think is going to end up winning this game. And you hate to say that because that makes it sound like it's going to be a terrible game. It's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch, but it's just, one team is going to be too aggressive and it's going to end up costing them the game, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. It's going to be who's able to play the cleaner game. It's going to be a high scoring game in my opinion, but I like Coach's point. If you're the Bills defense, you're going to have to come down, especially if you're DeMar Hamlin or you're Taylor Rapp, you're going to have to be able to come down in the box and tackle. The Lions have one of the best 1-2 punches at running back in the league. In what do they call them? Sonic and Knuckles.
I love
Where
that. As a guy who loves to come up with
Montgomery and
nicknames, I'm
Gibbs,
so jealous.
like you've got two running backs with double-digit touchdowns, and they're both going to evenly split carries, and they both bring something different to the table. And you can throw it to both of them out of the backfield. Like you're going to have to be able to win one-on-one open field tackling matchups if you're DeMar Hamlin rolling down into the box whenever they go 12 personnel, or if you're Taylor Rapp doing the same thing. That's going to be the key to the game for me, because Detroit's going to come out and run the football. Obviously Amon-Ra is going to get his targets. Jameson Williams is going to get his targets, but that they're going to come out and they're going to try to establish the run game with those two guys. They're going to try to get their running backs involved and get them going both through the air and on the ground early. So it's going to be really pivotal for safeties and defensive backs and even outside linebackers matched up to make one-on-one open field tackles this game. If you can tackle those guys and limit big plays from those two guys, you have a really good chance of winning this game.
And Jonathan makes a great point, because I don't know if you guys have seen the injury report, and I don't know if for sure they're going to play or not. DeMar Hamlin, Taylor Rapp, Rasul Douglas are all questionable. I'm not saying that they're all going to be out, but even if one or two of them aren't able to play, you're looking at a Detroit team. For me, the key in this game, and not just because he's on my fantasy team in the playoffs, is Jameson Williams. I think if you're Buffalo, Bobby Babbitt's just a great job of taking away your first option, right? I think we saw outside of the Puka Nacua game last week, Bills defense have been pretty good about not getting burned. But my concern is if Detroit comes out aggressive and they throw the deep ball, does Buffalo have the bodies to be able to cover it? The other thing, too, that to me is so fascinating about this coaching matchup is these are two coaches that I wish would take a piece out of each other's book. Sometimes I think we criticize Dan Campbell for being too aggressive, right? He goes 4 or 5 on fourth downs. He goes on that 4th and 1 with 30 seconds left to go in the game. And on the other hand, I wish Sean McDermott sometimes was more aggressive in trusting Josh Allen and letting him go for things on 4th and 5 and 4th and 7. And so you make a good point, Nick, with the coaching matchup, and just to see who is more aggressive than the other in terms of what they're used to being. Does Dan Campbell go for it on 4th down 8 times? Does Sean McDermott try to roll the dice on a fake punt or something like that? I think that's going to be a huge key to the game. And for me, I think for Detroit, we don't cover them, but I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, right? I think we're all on pins and needles, and maybe, Coach, you can talk about this a bit more because I'm sure that you've seen this as well. Is when is Detroit going to make that crucial mistake? Is it going to happen again like it did last year in the NFC Championship game? Are we going to wait to see it happen till the playoffs? But I just feel like at some point, somebody's going to take advantage of a mistake Dan Campbell makes, and I wonder, with the monstrosity of this game, if Sunday might be the day.
I don't know. I think, the biggest thing I think that helped the Lions, to be quite honest with you, even though it wasn't a marquee game, was winning on Thanksgiving. They got that monkey off their back. So even though they, played the Bears and didn't play a great team, they had not had much success in probably the most pressure-packed, game. That they're the game, right? They're the only game on at 12:30. So I think, getting over that hump, really helps them. And, they have created, a culture of, we are going to be who we are, and we're going to be in your face. And, from the first time he talked about, breaking your kneecaps or whatever, chewing off your kneecaps, he has stayed true to his character. On the other side, Sean McDermott, VMI grad, stoic, very bright, very calm, coaches that way, nice demeanor. I don't know if they're going to flip characters, right? Freaky Friday, they would have to change bodies. It would have to be an out-of-body experience. I think you are who you are. And both teams have been very successful because of that. Now, I will say this, I believe the Bills will win this week, because at some particular point, Detroit's going to lose. They've won 11 in a row, mathematically, right? Probability wise. I just think you will see Buffalo much more in dire need, right? This game means more to them, especially losing last week, right? Yep. So now you're in a situation where you may not get the 2 seed, So if you're Detroit, yes, you have a lot to play for. But if you're Buffalo, I believe you have more to play for. Now, I say that, but now I just read they won't have a single practice this week because of the weather. Maybe that's a good thing at this particular time. Maybe they need, to be away from the facility and, be doing virtual meetings and not practice at all, and show up and play. So, I think Buffalo will outscore Detroit this week. And, Detroit has quite a few injuries on defense as well, so they've overcome them. But I think Buffalo bounces back and wins this game.
And how interesting is it the last time Buffalo played in Detroit, it was because of weather in the chaotic snowstorm that the Bills had faced. And now the next time they play in Detroit, they're not going to have the in-person practices because of the snow in Buffalo. Must just be a karma thing. So Wayne's taking the Bills. Let's go into the picks now with Jonathan. Agree, disagree with Wayne? Who do you think wins on Sunday in a big game?
I want to agree with Wayne because, to his point, at some point Detroit's got to drop one, And if they're going to drop one to anyone, this Bills team is a team that is more than capable of handing them an L. But Dan Campbell coaches football like I play college football 25. Super aggressive. It doesn't matter if he's on his own half of the field. It doesn't matter if it's 4th and 6 on your own 45. Like he has, I'm not going to say that on the podcast. He has the utmost confidence in his team and his offense, particularly, and their ability to just go out there and get the job done, no matter what, no matter the circumstance, no matter what the down and distance is. Like he has supreme confidence in his offense and what they do as a team. It's hard for me to pick against a guy like that. It might be why I lose so many games in NCAA football. it might be why I lose some one-score games by a field goal when I could have kicked the field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 7.
We've all been there.
But it's just one of those things where I love the aggressiveness, and you'll hear a lot of national pundits kind of talk down on Campbell and say that he's overly aggressive and does things in situations where there's no need for it. But as a player, you love playing for a coach like that. You love playing for a coach that's going to say, screw it, we're going to go get this first down no matter what. It doesn't matter what the D&D is. I trust my offense over your defense any day of the week, any down, any D&D, it doesn't matter. Like, you love playing for a coach like that. And I just feel like those guys are fired up to play for Dan Campbell. Week in and week out, like they're going to go to war for that man at head coach. It's hard to pick against him right now.
Man, I think we've all been there with college football, right? maybe not coach, but I remember.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know you don't. I've been going for it.
We play video games. Coach lives it.
Yeah, the guys on the bottom of the screen are the ones who actually do the work on the field. Nick and I are just going and podding up custom players on our road to glory or whatever it is, getting 10,000 passing yards. Nick Gartman, the floor is yours for a split so far. Bills and Lions. Who do you have winning?
I think since we started this recording, I have changed my answer 7 times.
Well, when I put it on the screen, you can't change it anymore. So.
So before I end up talking myself in circles for the next 30 minutes, let's go ahead and lock in the Bills. I want to lock in the Bills. You made a lot of really good points, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be a shootout game because of the injuries in the secondary for Buffalo. However, the Lions, if you're going to attack that Lions defense, it's in their secondary as well. So then if you look at that as like passing game versus passing game, I'm going with Iron Man Josh Allen. Allen has been playing some of the best football, not even his best football, the best football I've seen outside of Patrick Mahomes over the last 5 years. He's playing smart. He's playing safe. Even though you're looking at, 2 games ago, first quarterback to throw, catch, and run in a touchdown. Last week he ran for 3, threw for 3. So he can just fit any mold. So whatever that defense is going to throw at him, I think he's going to overcome it. So I think it's going to come down to, I think I looked, the over-under for this game is 54.5. That's an insane game, and I think Allen is going to end up with that final notch in the belt to take down the Lions.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but I would hammer the under in this game. I do not think it's going to be as high-scoring as people think.
Good thing you're not a better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people coming into this game are thinking, okay, high flying, ball in the air, all that fun stuff. But one of the things that I mentioned on Flagship City Sports Talk on Monday is James Cook's gone 4 out of 5 games without hitting 100 yards. And I think there's a part of Sean McDermott and really Joe Brady, too, that knows you can't win in the playoffs. The guys on the bottom of the screen know this. You can't win in the postseason if you can't run the football. And I think Buffalo's going to have to play a few snow games if they play one or multiple games at home. I think you look at the way that this Bills team is constructed. Josh Allen as Superman is not the best version of the Bills. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen that. I think that's something that can help you at times, but if Buffalo gets away from it, then they become a one-dimensional team. Doesn't work in playoffs. I think you're going to see a lot of ground game from James Cook, same with Jahmyr Gibbs, same from David Montgomery. I just don't think there are going to be enough possessions in this football game for it to be a 35-31 sort of a game, and I think the defense will get stops. I'm going Buffalo too. I don't think it's more of a need it more. I think if it's just, I've attributed the fact that Josh Allen, a quarterback, Buffalo's never going to get blown out again in a game. And I just think at the end of the day, they're going to get the ball last. And really, for me, it's a flip a coin game, but I think Josh is going to be able to make the play when it matters most to win the game. I don't think it's going to be anything Detroit didn't do. It's going to be more what Buffalo did do in a game that, to your guys' point, they really need to win because the Pittsburgh Steelers are hot on their heels. Let's shift to that. One game at 425 as a marquee matchup's good enough. Battle of Pennsylvania at 425 is even better, guys. Steelers, Eagles in the battle for the Keystone State. And it's so funny. You look at the standings, and there's all this worry in Pittsburgh, as I understand, right? The rest of the season's really hard. You've got, in 11 days, I think it is, you've got the Chiefs, you've got the Eagles, you've got the Ravens. But then you look at the standings and you think, well, they really only need to win 2 of their last 4 to win the division. Where do you guys stand on this game in Pittsburgh? I don't want to say the importance, but is this a good matchup for Philly, or is it a good matchup for Pittsburgh when you look at the rosters, guys?
I'll jump in first. I think this is a good game for Pittsburgh. And again, if you'd asked me this last week, we talked about it last week. Last week, I had Philly winning the Super Bowl. I wish I could. Can I redo my redo? If you go back to 2020, if you go back to 2023 in Week 12, the Eagles were 12-1. Okay, you go forward and they ended up losing 5 of their last 6 and early exit in the playoffs. So that history doesn't always repeat itself, but it's kind of looking like it's repeating itself. They barely win against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are playing really well as of late, but now you have, dysfunction in the locker room. A.J. Brown is talking about, he needs to get the ball more, and he looks open. Hurts is playing great football. Saquon's playing great football, but I'm just afraid that history is going to repeat itself, and the Eagles are starting to fall apart here. Now, flip to the other side with Pittsburgh. I heard Mark Madden on 105.9 The X out of Pittsburgh this week, and he said something I thought was so odd but true. The Steelers do not excel at anything. They have a good defense. They have a good run game. They have a good quarterback. But where's the weakness for this Pittsburgh Steelers team? And I think that's what allows them to kind of slow bleed these teams and win by a field goal here, they're not blowing people out, and it's because they are a solid football team on both sides of the ball. So when I look at this game this weekend, I think you let the Eagles shoot themselves in the foot. Pittsburgh will do enough on offense and defense to stay ahead. That's the type of game that Tomlin wants to play right now, and I think that's advantage Pittsburgh by the end of Sunday's game.
So Nick's taking the Steelers right out of the gate. We didn't even need to get to the pick segment. He's put the hammer down as Nick Artman. He's going with Steelers in this game.
Sorry, I got excited.
No, you're totally allowed. I get it. It's a huge game. It's a gigantic game. Guys, your thoughts on this and maybe a key or something to look out for 2 teams that really need this game for standings.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm looking at Pittsburgh and Nick, you asked where's the weakness. That depends on if George Pickens plays in this game. He's still banged up and dealing with a hamstring injury, and they don't know that he's going to suit up on Sunday. If George Pickens is not playing in this game, who's your deep threat? How do you stretch the field? How do you keep that defense honest and keep them from putting 7 or 8 in the box and daring you to throw the ball over the top if you're Russell Wilson. I just don't know who else they have on that roster at receiver that is that legitimate 50-50 jump ball guy. You can stretch the field with him and you have a chance to come down with the ball and make a play if George Pickens doesn't line up. That's kind of my key to the game, because if you don't have that, it makes you really one-dimensional offensively. So for me, it kind of depends on whether or not George Pickens is healthy and able to go, and if he is able to play, how healthy is he, and what is his status when he's on the field? Is he going to be more of a decoy, or is he going to be George Pickens that we've seen all season and kind of be that guy that they can go to when they need a big play?
If he's actually injured, I think he's out this week. Tomlin pretty much all but called him out already. But I think so. Let me counter that, because they did that last week. I mean, they lost to the Cleveland Browns when they had Pickens, and then they still put up 27 points without Pickens. You're right. Did they have that ball stretcher? No, because Mike Williams is maybe, that would have been Mike Williams from 2-3 years ago. But now he's more of, maybe a 25-75 kind of guy instead of a 50-50 guy. You're able to spread the ball around a little bit. So they have shown, and I think that's where, again, coming out of last week, I changed my mind, because they showed that, yes, they do need that other receiver, but they don't need that other receiver to win. They can grind out that game on the ground. They can win the game with Freiermuth, Washington, Jefferson, Austin. I mean, none of those are going to be Pro Bowl players, but I think there's enough of those playmakers with Russ throwing the ball that I think they've already shown they can win without Pickens.
Coach, your thoughts?
Not this week. I watched the Philadelphia Eagles manhandle the Ravens. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you what, those two dudes inside, and Jonathan will tell you, right? Immovable force. Yeah. They, as good as Pittsburgh is defensively, Philadelphia is heads and shoulders above, in my opinion. So the Philadelphia defensive line will dominate the Steeler offensive line.
Jalen Carter.
The Philadelphia offensive line will dominate the Pittsburgh defensive line. Ogunjubu's probably out. We're talking about Pickens, but what about Deshaun Elliott, right? To me, it is a backstreet bully Philadelphia Flyer game, right? So, I mean, Philly has the ability to bully the NFC North and everyone. I was really shocked at how physical they were. And Vic Fangio is a maestro, as a defensive guy. I mean, man, the way they tackle in the open field, the way that they triangle tackle, they know where their help is, use the sideline, inside out, chase the hip, all the things Jonathan's probably like, man, suit me up, coach, but everything fundamentally, they're so sound, pressure wise. And I just don't think that Pittsburgh will be able to run the football. It's going to be one-dimensional, and that's not where Russell Wilson excels. He's not back in the gun and chucking it 40 times. He's under center, to your point, throwing it to Freiermuth and doing those things and dumping it down to the backs. I just think Philadelphia is the better football team, and after watching them last week, may be the best football team in NFC right now. And they're not going to implode like they did, but they didn't have Saquon Barkley, right?
Yes.
True. So Saquon Barkley has just exponentially, and I think you have great leadership, in that room. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Saquon AJ Brown, hey, there are not enough footballs to go around, and he wants the ball more, but he's going to block on the perimeter for Saquon.
Oh, yeah.
And he's going to know that this week, because if they run the ball, he's going to get the ball more this week because Saquon, is creating those one-on-ones for him, because Pittsburgh likes to get into a lot of one high, and they're going to have to get in one high to defend the run.
Yeah, I think the Steelers defense is going to struggle with Hurts. I mean, they struggle with rushing quarterbacks. You see that in Lamar all the time. And I that's going to be the biggest weakness for Pittsburgh in this game is how do you – there are too many offensive weapons for the Eagles. Okay, fine, you shut down Saquon. Well, guess what? There's A.J. Brown burning you in for a touchdown. Oh, okay, fine, you double cover A.J. Brown. Well, hey, look, Devonta Smith's wide open across the middle of the field. And then it's like once you start to cover one – okay, maybe you shut down those three. Okay, well, now Hurts is going to run it 40 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. That's a big advantage.
The ability, I think you'll see this week Philly get into the empty set way more, and there Saquon is a great threat. And now you're in empty, but they do such a great job with the quarterback run game in empty, pulling the center. I know Kelsey's not there, but the way that they've scripted the empty game to still have a run game out of it. And I think that's what you need to do. In that Pittsburgh 3-4, you get an empty. Highsmith, Herbig, TJ, one of those guys has to get out and be the hook, curl, flag guy. Can't rush the passer. So, I think they'll be able to do some of those things and create enough plays.
Jonathan, I'll let you. Go ahead.
We were talking real quick. We were talking about PSAC coaches earlier. Nick Sirianni, former wide receivers coach for IUP as well.
And don't forget that he's a Jamestown, New York guy, so there's a lot of pride on the line, and his brother's down there at Washington and Jefferson. The whole tree. So there's a lot of pride on the line in the state of Pennsylvania. This week.
IUP connections, man. They just come fast and furious. Jonathan Williams, I'll let you make your pick here because I got an interesting take on this game.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Philly. I just kind of feel like these guys said, it's too many weapons to stop. You might be able to stop one, you might be able to stop two, but it's always something else coming with this Eagles team. And to their point, AJ Brown's going to get the football at some point. He obviously he's frustrated. Every receiver is frustrated when they don't get the touches that they're used to getting, but he's still been productive this season. He still has over 800 yards to this point in the season. It's just not what he's typically used to as a number one receiver. Right. But he never played with Saquon Barkley before, and Saquon Barkley having statistically the best season he's had since he's been in the league. So he's going to get the football. Obviously, teams are going to commit more to stopping the run against the Eagles and trying to game plan for their power read stuff and definitely trying to stop Saquon. And it's going to lead to more one-on-one opportunities for him. And I don't foresee that being very much of an issue down the stretch. But, yeah, like these guys said, it's just too many weapons.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick, and I think Wayne and Jonathan, you guys make good calls. I'm going to go with one guy that no one's talked about. And it's somebody that I'm really scared for, and it's somebody that I think is taking a major step back. We saw him on Hard Knocks. Joey Porter Jr. better have his best game of the season, or Pittsburgh's going to lose by 20. I look at this Philly offense, Wayne, you make a great point with the spread 5 wide. If I'm the Eagles, I'm going to put Devontae Smith everywhere I can on Joey Porter Jr. I think his speed is going to be a problem. I think you put him out with deep go routes, deep slants, deep hook curls, something that forces contact or something in the vicinity of contact for Joey Porter Jr. I think it especially becomes a problem, to Wayne's point, if Deshaun Elliott can't go. Then you leave Minka on an island, and then you choose, do you give safety help over the top for Joey Porter, or do you allow A.J. Brown to be one-on-one with, in theory, Cam Sutton? I just think that for Porter, if he can't figure out a way to stop Devontae Smith early, they're going to keep feeding him the football, and then at some point you go over the top to A.J. Brown. I think Philadelphia is going to come out, and I actually disagree with what the panel's saying. I think they're going to throw the ball 30 or 35 times. I do not think Saquon Barkley's a factor in this game at all. I think Pittsburgh's front seven is good enough that they can slow him down on first and second down, but Philly's going to recognize a mismatch really quickly on the outside, and if Joey Porter doesn't have his best game, they're going to lose by 20. I think Philadelphia wins this game. I hope I'm wrong. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it's close. I just think the mismatches are the worst in the worst spots for Pittsburgh. And to Wayne's point, they're just such a complete team of the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll leave Nick as the lone person to pick Pittsburgh. I hope it works out in the Steelers' favor because I think they need the game. But, man, we talk about Super Bowl matchups. Is it possible, guys, that one of the 2 games that we just talked about is the Super Bowl matchup?
I think so. Absolutely, I think so. In our redo last week, if you missed that, go back and check it out on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. But I had KC and Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship, and then Philly and Detroit in the NFC Championship. I had KC winning it, but if Pittsburgh wins, I think you could see Pittsburgh, Philly, or vice versa. Yeah, I think both of these are great games, and both could end up being, Super Bowl matchups.
I think all the pressure's on Pittsburgh. They have not won in Philly in 60 years.
Yep.
One. Number 2, Philly doesn't need to win. They're going to win the division. Yeah. Now you can say, well, yes, they can look at the scoreboard, and if Detroit keeps winning, but, you're Philly, you're 1 or 2, right? You're Pittsburgh, you don't win this game. Now you've got Kansas City and Baltimore the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Could you end up being 11-6? And hypothetically, knock on wood, if Lamar's mom did a good enough job motivating and the Ravens are 13-3 out of the bye, the Ravens, as bad as I think that they've played with their schedule, could run the table and end up at 12-5. I really believe that. I'm not telling you that's going to happen, but I believe that there's a large chance that could happen. Yeah. So, the game is much more important in the standings and then the playoff race for Pittsburgh, but that puts a little more pressure on them too. Philly, hey man, we're going to go out and play, do our thing. We got the Giants and the Cowboys in a couple weeks. We're already 3 games ahead of the Redskins. We're golden. Yes, we'd like to get 1, but 1 or 2, we're in good shape.
Well, the advantage for the Eagles too, and I think this is the obvious one, is even if you're not the 1 seed, your NFC Championship games in a dome. It's not like you have to worry about the elements or anything of that nature. You're going to be on equal playing field minus the crowd. I think for Pittsburgh, having to go to Kansas City and Arrowhead, the cold wouldn't scare me, but the crowd would and the atmosphere would. I think the same with, to your point, when if they don't win the division, they got to go to Baltimore. If they have to go to Buffalo, God forbid, in that chaos and tunnel in Orchard Park. So it'll be really interesting to see. But, two huge games, Steelers and Eagles, Bills and Lions, both at 425. If you have YouTube TV and are able to deal with the price increase, maybe you can double box those on Sunday afternoon. All right, before we go, we'd be remiss if we mentioned the Browns. Remember back to like week 2, guys, and I just did hey, if anybody is picking the Browns to upset the Ravens, raise your hand. And there was only one person in that group that raised their hand. So let's do it again, shall we? Just for fun. I don't know. Who knows? Anybody think the Browns are upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday afternoon? Raise your hand. All right, we got 2 of us.
Dang it, Nick.
We got 2 of us.
Dang it, Isaac.
It's a trap.
I mean, look, it's bound to happen at some point, right? I just, the fascinating thing about the Browns this season, and we talked about it on Monday, and I don't know where you guys stand on this. I don't think Jameis Winston's to answer. But I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop for the Chiefs. And maybe it won't. I don't think in the playoffs, but there's got to be a game, right? There has to be a game. And, man, for the Browns, it's got to be your Super Bowl, right? I just something about the cold weather in Cleveland, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock. Last time these 2 teams played in Cleveland at 1 o'clock, it wasn't pretty for the Chiefs. I just have that feeling, man. I don't know. Something about this game.
I get that it was AFC North matchups, but they were able to take down Baltimore. They were able to take down Pittsburgh. They have nothing, to your point, they have nothing to lose in this game. So when you have Jameis going against the Chiefs' 20th ranked pass defense, 20th ranked pass defense, that's a recipe for an upset. And I think Winston has no governor. He has nothing holding him back in this offense at this point. The Chiefs are an incredible football team. I said this on Flagship on Monday. We're talking about how this is the worst Chiefs team ever. They keep winning. They keep barely winning these games, and they're such a bad Chiefs team. Yeah, okay, well, they're still 12-1. So if this is a bad version of the Chiefs, I hate to see them playing well. That being said, I think it's a trap game. I'm actually with Isaac on this one. Going into Cleveland, cold weather game, Jameis with no fear. I could see them a very real possibility, and I do believe Winston will take them over the top for this win.
I understand waiting for the shoe to drop on Kansas City because I'm also waiting for the same thing. I've been the guy saying all season long that you're like, yeah, Kansas City is winning these games, but like they aren't impressing me. They aren't playing particularly well. They're just playing just good enough to win. I don't feel good picking Cleveland over Kansas City. Yes, 1 p.m. game, Cleveland, weather, everything like that. But like the talent discrepancy on these two rosters it's ridiculous. If Kansas City shows up and plays like 3/4 of the Kansas City football team that we know that they have the ability to play as, they win this game easily. If Jameis Winston comes out and does a pregame interview and he looks up to the heavens before he comes up with some ridiculous quote pregame that doesn't motivate a soul but himself and somehow everyone in that locker room, then okay, yeah, maybe they have a puncher's chance. And he goes and he throws 30 passes and he eclipses 400 yards again. Yeah, maybe he has a chance. I don't see Jameis Winston having another 500-yard performance. I don't see him pulling that out of the bag against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. I think he'll play well enough to keep them in it. I think he'll play well enough to keep them close. But as is the case with Jameis, as close as he keeps you and as well as he can play to keep you in games, he's also good for the mistake that loses you the game. And and a couple of weeks ago, he was good for about 3 of those mistakes that lose you the game. So I just don't feel good picking them for an upset when you've got a guy that could either win you or lose you a football game with his arm, and you really don't know which way it's going to go.
Coach is just looking at me like, Isaac, you're crazy.
I don't think it's that. I just think realistically, watching the game last week, obviously because I was rooting hard for the Browns, because I'm a Ravens fan.
Yeah.
I don't think they have anything left, and I really think that Jameis has, regressed the last couple of weeks. He's played worse. Throwing an interception on a screen, it's covered. I just don't think there's anything left. And I know the Chiefs may be 20th, but Spagnuolo will have something up his sleeve, and the way they're rotating and disguise and the pressure they'll put on, and Cleveland has no run game. They couldn't run the ball last week at all. And to be quite honest with you, shame on you, Kevin Stefanski, for being 2-8 or 3-8 and kicking field goals. I despise that. I despise that from John Harbaugh. If he sends Justin Tucker out there again, I might lose my mind.
Well, he's not guaranteed to make those. That's the problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you're 3-8 and you're inside the 40 and you're kicking field goals against the Steelers, and it could have been 13-13, but they should have been. Dan Campbell needs to call Kevin Stefanski and say, "Hey, Kevin, you guys aren't making the playoffs, or every week's a 1-week playoff game. You get on the freaking, Hard Knocks and say, hey, you've made the playoffs. Every week's a playoff. Well, coach to win, not to not lose. Kick a darn field goal. Field goals aren't going to win the game. You got to go. So I think the Browns are done. They're cooked. And if you're Kansas City, you win this week. You beat the Texans. Yeah, then you got the Steelers and the Broncos in Denver. You win the next 2, you probably have home field. They're not going to not show up this week. Plus, they're going to be on TV. They're going to be on Hard Knocks. So you don't think that the Chiefs want to be on the Tuesday night episode losing, to the Browns and being on, HBO.
All I can hope is that Andy Reid, at the end of the game in the post-game locker room, puts up our show of Nick and I raising our hands and says, see these 2 goons? These underpaid, overhyped goons? They don't know what they're talking about. Those guys from Erie, PA. Now, this guy in the bottom left, Coach Bradford, well, Coach Spagnola's leaving soon, so we got to get him a DC job.
Fumbleruski do.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what, those Hard Knocks episodes are fun to watch. And hopefully this show's been fun to watch for you as well. We're always happy to be with you here, especially on a Friday as we get ready for the weekend. So much good stuff happening. Nick, enjoy the warm weather. Please bring some of it back this way. We really need it. Jonathan specifically needs it. He's tired of putting salt on his driveway.
Man, if I have to salt another step to get into my apartment, if I have to scrape another crystal of ice off of my windshield so that I can see properly when I'm driving, if I get another emergency warning about a whiteout, about a blizzard, about a lake effect, anything, I might lose it. So please go down to Orlando and bring some Orlando back to us. Thank you.
They
Yeah.
don't sponsor us. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We need 4 sets of ears for the next podcast.
Don't tempt me,
Those,
Coach.
those things are expensive, man. I don't know if we have room in the podcast budget for them. Last time we
Man.
went to Disney, my wife and I, it was like $40 for a pair of ears.
Yeah, it's
My
crazy.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's insane.
Can't get
Yeah,
anything
no.
cheap in Disney.
Yeah, there's nothing about Disney that's cheap. Hey, but you know what is cheap and you know what's really cool is if you watch our show. And we thank you again for watching our show on this Friday night. Free and ready for anyone who wants to be a part of our group. Of course, our show is always sponsored by Reppers Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. 814-734-3433 is the number to call. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for being a part of our show. Our next broadcast coming up Monday, 9 o'clock. That's Flagship City Sports Talk, part of our podcast network. It's on TalkErie.com, X, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you get your podcasts. Enjoy your weekend. Happy football Saturday and Sunday to all of you. Best of luck to your teams. And